We are live on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast brought to you by Rival Fantasy. Go to rivalfantasy.com or get the Rival Fantasy app. Today is Sunday. What is it, May 21st? I think that's
You got it.
accurate. I'm Drew Silva. With me here is Ryan Boyer. On this episode, we're going to do some individual risers and fallers from the weekend, players who showed something encouraging and others who did not. We'll talk some FAAB waiver wire targets to round things out here on Sunday afternoon. First, let's jump into the headlines. The lead story from Saturday, I guess, would be Julio Urias, who landed on the injured list with a left hamstring strain. It sounds like he suffered that injury at some point during his brutal start on Thursday night against the Cardinals. He gave up, what was it, 6 earned runs on 6 hits, 2 walks over just 3 innings, gave up 4 homers. It's
Including
not the worst sounding injury, just a left hamstring strain. It sounds like he's just going to miss a couple turns in the Dodgers rotation. Maybe you could call it a reset for him after what was his worst outing of the year on Thursday in St. Louis. Overall this season, a 5-4 record, a 4.39 ERA, a 1.16 WHIP, 53 to 11 strikeout to walk ratio in 55 and a third innings. Kind of a fine start to the season for him. The ERA obviously inflated by that outing against the Cardinals. But I guess this might give us the first look at Bobby Miller. Like, I mean, they've talked about bringing up Gavin Stone. They have other options there, but it seems like maybe this is going to be Miller time.
Yeah, Miller's coming up Tuesday. Stone's going to come up too. He's going to fill in for Dustin May. And then, of course, they also have Noah Syndergaard in the rotation. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to last. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think Stone in particular probably has a better chance to stick around over the long haul. I feel like he's a little more polished than Miller. Miller had the shoulder issue at the start of the season, so he's still kind of getting built up. He did pitch really well his last start at AAA Oklahoma City. Gave up 1 run over 6 innings, 6 strikeouts. But he hadn't pitched much or pitched all that well in his other 3 starts. I know in talking to Chris yesterday, we were talking about the possibility of Miller maybe coming up. He thinks there's still maybe some reliever profile over the long haul for him just because he's doesn't throw enough strikes really. Maybe he can have enough swing in this to overcome that, but there is some reliever risk with him. I mean, when he's on though, it's like he's on the short list of best stuff among pitching prospects in all of baseball. Even more so
watching him pitching this spring, and he seems like he's got it all in the bag.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that he didn't even put up great numbers in college. It was just something that the Dodgers saw on his arm, thinking that they could, coax the most out of that talent, and pretty much have to this point. Like I said, he's got to figure out a way to throw more strikes, but certainly interested to see who is it Tuesday? Is it the Braves that he's going to face Tuesday? I forgot to double check on that. I feel like it's a different. Yeah, I think that's right because I remember in talking.
You're right. It's at Atlanta.
Yeah, because I remember in talking to Chris yesterday, Gavin Stone's first 2 starts are going to be at Atlanta and at Tampa Bay. So it's about as tough as it gets. Which I guess Miller would probably get the Rays next as well. And then the week after that, it would be the Yankees and Phillies. So kind of throwing them right into the fire. I mean, Miller, just for the upside alone, is worth a roll of the dice. I think you can pick him up and see how that first start goes. It could go poorly. And
we've seen this where promising young starters come up and get blown up, but I don't know, Yuri Perez has looked really good. It is a roll of the dice type situation.
Sure. But yeah, doesn't sound like Urias is going to be out too long. Kind of surprised it wasn't like a neck issue from whiplash, turning around, watching all those home runs fly out of Busch Stadium. But I guess they were wondering if maybe he was tipping his pitches because he's got just all of a sudden just lost it. But I guess if you got a hamstring barking at you, maybe that affects your mechanics a little and left some balls right over the middle of the plate.
The tipping the pitches storyline tends to come out after a rough outing. This is an interesting question now that we're on the Dodgers. Would you drop James Outman for Asterio Ruiz or Ezekiel Duran or Miguel Vargas? I feel like you're in a shallow league if you have all these options. I wouldn't give up on Outman. I know there's been kind of like a little dead period for him, but like overall, what we've seen from him so far is really good. I mean, Ruiz, if you need steals.
Yeah, I don't. And it's pretty shocking to me that the Ruiz would be available in any league. Really, most any of those guys, I'm surprised.
Yeah, Vargas. I mean, Vargas has turned it in too.
Yeah, Vargas.
I'd want to see a roster. Yeah, I agree.
In a roto league, if it's a roto league, I think you have to put Ruiz at the top of that list.
He says it's 10 points league, pretty shallow.
Well, that evens it out a little bit then. I mean, Vargas's value goes up in points because he walks so much and doesn't strike out that much.
I honestly I want to say Vargas of those. So for people that aren't seeing this visually, like Outman, Asterio Ruiz, Ezekiel Duran, or Miguel Vargas.
Jaron Duran, I'm assuming he's – oh, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, Ezekiel Duran. Yeah, I had Jaron Duran in my head, but – yeah.
Right. No, I think Vargas is actually the best hitter of that group. But Outman, man.
Outman's been swinging missing a lot the last month or so.
I know. It's been bad recently.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd ride Vargas for a bit.
Yeah. I mean, Ruiz, though he certainly loses value in a head-to-head points. I mean, you still get points for those stolen bases, and he's like just head and shoulders above everyone else.
Duran's been really good too, man. Duran's been really good.
That's a good group. Just get them all. Our answer is just roster all of them.
I wish I wasn't. If I were in your league, I might just have all of them.
No, ultimately, I think I'm with you that Vargas is probably in the head-to-head points. I think he's probably the best bet. Just because I believe in that hit tool so much with him, and his value is going to go up in a points league because he, like I said, doesn't strike out that much, draws a ton of walks. So maybe not the upside of the other guys, but I think he's probably the safest bet of that group.
So Bobby Miller coming up against Atlanta. I don't know. I really like him, but if you're in a 10-team league, you're not starting him against Atlanta, right?
In a 10-teamer, no. I think you gotta. I think in 12 teams too, I would hold off. I mean, Gavin Stone got rocked in his first start too. It's not necessarily, doesn't mean Miller's going to get rocked in his first start, but I think there's too much risk there. When Chris and I were talking about him yesterday, I honestly thought. I said I think he probably just needs more time. I don't think the Dodgers ideally would be bringing him up now. Exactly. They're kind of forced to. Kind of hoping to catch lightning in a bottle a little bit, but yeah, I would probably hold off on starting him. Another guy that has joined Julio Urias on the injured list, unfortunately, Jorge Polanco. He injured his hamstring, I think, Wednesday. They initially referred to it as day-to-day, but subsequently he's been placed on the injured list. Haven't heard anything about a timetable with him yet. So, I mean, with hamstrings, you kind of figure probably going to be at least 3 weeks or so, even if it's on the mild side. Edouard Julien has come up and taking Polanco's spot on the roster. He can kind of slide right in there at second base. Super interesting guy. Speaking of points league, guys whose value goes up in points league, that guy just draws a ton of walks. So he's probably going to just be sliding right in at second base for the Twins for a while. There's also Royce Lewis. He can't be activated until May 29th, I believe. He's on the 60-day IL. But Royce Lewis could fill in at second base too if Polanco needs a little bit more time.
Right.
Polanco could conceivably beat him back, though, I think, from the injured list. But Royce Lewis as well. Kyle Farmer's played pretty well, but I don't think he's not much of a roadblock as far as Royce Lewis eventually taking over at third base. I think that's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. He's looked great already on his short rehab assignment so far. Yeah, Polanco, hopefully we'll see him back in a couple weeks. Looks like thankfully he's put that knee issue behind him.
At least it's not the knee. It's just he's been such a frustrating player because of these like on and off IL stints. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, we got who else was Kyle Hendricks? You were going to touch on Kyle Hendricks a little bit.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, looks to be appearing to return to the Cubs rotation probably against the Reds next weekend. Threw 82 pitches over 6 innings of 1-run ball in what I guess would be his final minor league rehab start Saturday against the AAA affiliate of the Pirates. The overall results haven't been great for Hendricks on his 5-start rehab stint, a 5.75 ERA, but he's been sharper in his last 3 outings. The strikeout rate has been fairly promising, 20 strikeouts in 21 or 20 and a third overall innings. Should get the Reds at home at Wrigley in his first start back from this capsule tear in his shoulder that's kept him out since last July. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan? I'm gonna throw it to you. We kind of know what kind of pitcher Hendricks is at this point. He's not really a big swing and miss guy. Usually can help you in ERA. Usually works like deep into games. I don't know if he's still that guy, but like I guess we talked about it last week. I talked about it with Chris. Like every fantasy lineup right now needs pitching, and against the Reds, I'm kind of leaning toward him as like a pretty nice streaming option. And then like if he shows well there, like he's maybe a guy you just rostered moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally, just because he's been out so long, you kind of stick him on your bench and just see what kind of start he gets off to. That is a favorable first matchup, certainly. His whole career, he's obviously been more of a floor play than a ceiling play. I do think he could benefit from the Cubs' vastly improved defense. I mean, he's a guy who's the ball's going to be put in play more against him.
They can play some D, man. They can play some D.
Although Bellinger's out now, Nico Horner's back, so that'll help their middle infield defense. I mean, I don't think you need to go out to rush to grab Kyle Hendricks. I mean, it's been a couple of years now since he's been, really a fantasy asset. But like you mentioned, like we don't necessarily need a ton of strikeouts from him. Like if he can just be a reliable source of ERA and WHIP, that's what pretty much any fantasy owner needs right now. So I think, like I said, ideally, I would like to kind of roster him in a deeper league and on my bench and give him a start or two to see how he looks. But I'm interested to see how he does in that first start back. Yeah. Another guy who sounds like Adam Duvall a few days ago mentioned that he was aiming to return when first eligible on June 9th. And kind of upping the activity level. It looks like he might have a real shot to be back at that point. He was awesome before getting hurt. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Red Sox do, because Jarren Duran's also been really good. I kind of, just by the kind of domino effect, I wonder if this is going to mean Tristan Casas losing ABs. Justin Turner's dealing with a knee issue right now, but assuming that's not like assuming it's more of like a day-to-day issue, they could put him at first base and use the DH spot for Duvall and others, and kind of still make Duvall and Duran everyday players. Maybe you bench Duran against lefties, but just where the Red Sox are, I don't know. You can't bench Jarren Duran right now. He's been one of your better players for the last several weeks. So, and Duvall has been, not a traditional center fielder in his career. Kind of bizarre that he's trying to be an everyday center fielder for the first time at like 34, but always been a good defender. And that, I've said from the beginning of that signing, like his swing is just tailor-made for Fenway Park, and that proved to be a good fit early on. He's just mashing the ball, pulls the ball in the air.
Forever underrated player, and like a good defender too.
Yeah, he's always been a good defender in the corners. It might be a little bit of a push for him in center, but they'll find a way to get him in the lineup. I think Casas might be the guy who loses ABs. Like I said, I would assuming, because he still hasn't really gotten going yet. I still like him over the long haul, but maybe a little reset at Worcester is not the worst thing for him. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that. What was that?
Worcester.
Worcester? Sorry, I didn't do my Boston accent. Go to Worcester and get some Dunkin'.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop trying to do my Boston
You haven't
accent.
spent enough time up on the Cape. Worcester.
Yeah, you can do a better Boston accent than me, I think.
I know. Actually, so I've been going up there, like I did a whole summer up there when I was in college, but I've gone up there every week, or once a year for a week in my life. Sometimes it was 2 weeks. And by the end of like my time up there, I start talking with a little, I don't know, it's like osmosis or something, like, hey, sweetheart.
Do you start being mean to everybody too? I know that's the reputation. And sorry if I offend the Bostonians.
No, I agree that is the reputation. I would say it's like good-spirited mean, if that makes sense. Like
Drew Silva seems like he would fit in well with that Boston crowd.
Oh yeah,
dish it and take it.
I'm not trying to like actually have a fist fight. I'm too old for that, but it's like if you give it back to them, they love it. It's that kind of situation. I went up to a Cardinals Mets series. This is different than Boston, and like these Mets fans, it was a bunch of buddies and me. They were just giving us, trouble. We were like out in the bleachers. And like we started giving it back to them, and they're like, "Yeah," they loved it. Like you just you gotta give it back to them. And
was one of these guys named DJ Short?
Dude, DJ don't want no problems.
He doesn't want the smoke.
No, he doesn't want this smoke. Some other headlines to round things out. Lance McCullers has been throwing on flat ground. Also has some bullpen sessions and live batting practice under his belt. It's kind of weird the way they've been doing his throwing progression. They've kind of changed. Usually it starts with flat ground throwing, then you move to mound work, then you move to live batting practice, then simulated games, then rehab. There's like, I don't know. The Astros have been very cagey about injuries for a long time. And I think this one they just don't really know. There's no exact timetable yet. It would appear he could be an option if things progress as they have been, he could be an option for their rotation sometime in June if everything continues to go well from this point forward. But I think it's kind of like a slow rolling approach from that forearm strain that he suffered in February. There's been some other little injuries too.
Well, he first.
Yeah.
I think, as far as I know, it's related to the same forearm issue he had, like dating back to like the playoffs in 2021, and he dealt with it like off and on last year as well. So maybe that's part of the reason why it's just been kind of a bizarre way they've built him back up. And we've seen reports on his velocity, like he's like kind of upper 80s to low 90s with his fastball, and like it's just kind of
good.
Yeah. I'm not terribly optimistic about McCullers coming back and staying healthy and being consistent.
For a team that just lost Luis Garcia to Tommy John surgery, that the Astros are in a weird place. Like, I'm sure they'll be there at the end of the year, but it does not feel like a World Series.
Jose Abreu hasn't hit a home run and since like well, I guess he had one in one last September. Hasn't hit homered yet this year. And he has like four dating back to the All-Star break last year.
Like, he's washed. We didn't have Matt McLean on our kind of docket today, but what have you seen from him so far? Like, I think he's a nice little prospect for the Reds, but I don't think that he's like a super. Did you guys talk about him recently? Like
a little bit, yeah. Like he's kind of like he's one of those guys that like he's like above average at everything. Like he doesn't really have any
better real life player than fantasy.
Yeah, maybe, but that could also be elevated by Great American Ballpark too. So I mean, I know I've heard like. This would be the high end, obviously, but I've heard kind of like an Alex Bregman comp at like if he hits his absolute peak. That doesn't seem likely, but just similar. And like Bregman doesn't have like loud tools either, that he really gets the most out of. Great plate discipline, gets the most out of what he has.
I pulled up a comment about Ellie De La Cruz, talking about loud tools.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time on Ellie De La Cruz yesterday.
I know, and I still think this is you better be in a deep league to be stashing him, or like a dynasty league. I don't think he's coming up imminently, and I could be proven wrong on that. The last like 10 days that he's had at AAA have been so promising with the walks, and like obviously he hits the crap out of the ball, and he's like got everything you would want from a fantasy prospect. But
Chris and I were talking about that yesterday too, about like the walks though. Like it's always tough to know whether he's like developing that skill or just the reputation means that pitchers are just not giving him.
I know, yeah. Like we're not watching those at bats live. It's hard to really say.
I have a feeling it's probably more of the latter. He feels very O'Neal Cruz-esque in so many ways. A big shortstop, big power, big arm, can run, just all those tools, but also probably going to strike out a whole lot and not hit for a great average. Although, he could hit the ball so hard that he could make up for that lack of contact. He could at least just not kill your average, but kind of got a little sidetracked there. Matt McLean, let's get back to Matt McLean just quickly.
Well,
I mean, I think he should be rostered in a league where I actually lost O'Neal Cruz, and I went to rostered Bryson Stott for a while he was hot, and since he's cooled off, I've moved on to Matt McLean in a shallower league. So I mean, I'm okay with rostering him if you're in need of a shortstop, and it's been good to see him batting second.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a favorable spot. He ideally he's probably more of a middle infield option, but I'm good with rostering him.
One more headline before we get into these 3 up, 3 down from Saturday. Byron Buxton made an early exit from Saturday's game against the Angels with a left calf tightness. Was there an update before Sunday's slate? Is this an IL situation? I hope not. I didn't see it.
Yeah, me neither.
It's a later afternoon game at Anaheim, so I don't know. I guess we just don't know quite yet. But Buxton has kind of been everything you want from him to be so far this season, like working out of the DH role for the Twins, staying healthy.
Except for the steals are
Entered.
just like non-existent now.
He's got 4. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that he's not going to be like the 30 steal guy, 40 steal guy, but 828 OPS, 9 homers, 21 RBIs, 30 runs scored through 42 games. I mean, I think he was an incredible value in drafts this year. You knew what you were doing when you drafted him. Like it's like drafting Jacob deGrom. Um, but I don't know, hopefully this is just a day-to-day kind of ordeal. We're still kind of waiting on news if this will require an IL stint. If it's like a calf strain, obviously he's going to be out for a bit. But he's been a force, man, like quietly for the Twins, who have a relatively commanding lead all of a sudden in the American League Central. I think the American League Central and the National League Central are very similar. Like the Cardinals, we're not doing a Cardinals podcast, but they're like in the mix all of a sudden. All of a sudden, like what are they? 5.5 games back.
Something like that. Yeah,
With
that
Buxton,
division
I
horrible.
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it would. The guys we talked about earlier with when we mentioned the Polanco injury, that would give even more leash to Edouard Julien and potentially Royce Lewis if Buxton does need that IL stint. As cautious as the Twins have been with him, I mean, he still hasn't played an inning in the outfield yet. It doesn't seem like there's any interest in that happening anytime soon, and this is going to maybe even push that timetable back a little bit. I mean, as cautious
It's
as they've
weird to
been,
make that guy a DH,
yeah,
but
like arguably the premier athlete in baseball, and he's stuck in the designated hitter spot. But if it helps keep him healthy and is bat in the lineup, then it's hard to argue with the results so far. But that's another potential opening in the Twins batting order if Buxton does need IL time.
did you see this comment from a listener? Non sequitur, that Bob Gibson photo behind you is epic. James Brown passing had me thinking about the greats. Yeah. Dude, shout out to Jim Brown.
That classic Bob Gibson follow through.
Yep. Just
Beautiful.
falling off the mound.
Yep.
Was that in the World Series?
I think it is from the World Series. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. I don't really have much. Kevin Shattenkirk bobblehead. I think I told
Probably
I've told you this.
Maybe one listener who
about,
knows who that is.
I got an Alex Petrangelo bobblehead. I've told this story on the podcast before, but I was at Great American Ballpark, and you could see like the
for our non-viewing audience,
right.
Drew's holding up a ball to the camera.
And I was Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati at that point. I was going to the University of Dayton, and tickets were like $2, and beers were $5 too, which was amazing at a major league stadium. So I was a little sauced up and moved our way down to the 4th row behind the Cardinals dugout. And Rick Ankiel was like my favorite player at that time, just because his journey from going from a great prospect to an outfielder. And
where was he in his career at that point when you?
It was probably his second year being an outfielder.
Okay.
And so he catches the final out of the inning, and I see him walking off the field. We make eye contact. I'm like, Rick, with the ball. he kind of short hops it with his arm. He shouldn't have done that. And it lands in a lady's hand in front of me, but I am right there and I grab it out of her hand.
Shamelessly, just
So
plucked it.
she turns around to me. She goes, "I know these are not your seats. Like I like I've been. These are my husband and I season tickets. I'll get you kicked out of here." And I was like, "Man, like that is like my favorite baseball player." And I made eye contact with him. The ball was for me. Like I'm keeping the ball.
And then you sprinted up the stadium
No, I
stairs and get
stayed.
out of
I stayed right there. I tried to win her over. She
there.
wasn't
She
really
was
having it.
she was all bark and no bite.
Yeah,
Did you dabble in a little of the Skyline chili to go with your $5 beers?
no.
Okay.
So I hate Skyline chili.
I've never had
It's
it.
disgusting. The one time that I did appreciate it, so that uh, these Cincinnati women friends of mine that I know would make a Skyline dip, and so it's like a 5-layer dip, and like the base layer is Skyline.
Huh. Is it
So
like
it's pretty good. It's like you're eating it with tortilla chips.
is Skyline chili essentially the same thing as like a chili mac from Steak and Shake? Is that similar?
Yeah, but
Chris said that Skyline chili is also like sweet. They like put like sugar in it.
it's got cinnamon in it and chocolate, I
Cinnamon.
think.
Hmm.
Steak
Like
and Shake
a
chili
mole?
is like Steak and Shake chili is like elite in
I
my
do
book.
like Steak and Shake
And
chili.
so it does not Skyline's bad. And
I think we need a
we're both
commercial
from
break, Drew. This is going off the rails. How about that
I mean
live read?
we both live in St. Louis where there's like weird, culinary things, but Skyline's bad. All right. I had to do a commercial break. A new MLB season means it's time for a new kind of daily fantasy baseball. Rival Fantasy is the fantasy platform reinventing the way daily and weekly games are played, and they brought new games to the ballpark this year that fantasy players won't find anywhere else. Rival Fantasy's games include Fantasy Bingo, head-to-head player challenges, and Fantasy Book, where users can select over-unders for 2 to 5 different players. With games like this, daily fantasy has never been better. Right now, RotoWire listeners can get a $50 protected first play. That means if you win your first play, you keep your winnings. But if you lose your first entry, Rival Fantasy will fully refund you up to $50. Go to play.rivalfantasy.com/sign up and use code RotoWire MLB at sign up and deposit a minimum of $25 to get your first entry on Rival protected up to $50. Now's the time to step up to the plate and become a Rival today. Welcome to the arena. All right. We do 3 up, 3 down on these Sunday shows. I'm intrigued by these comments. Rick Ankiel played high school in my area. He could have been gold, but he had a lot of family issues. I know that like his dad spent some time in prison for like drug dealing, I believe.
Yeah, I read his book. Did you
Incredible
ever
arm.
you ever read it?
I did not with Tim
Yeah.
Brown, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was good.
I wanted to read that book.
It delved deep into all that stuff and had some other things going on too. But in other Cardinals news, one of my 3 up.
Wait,
Well, oh, go ahead.
I saw. We're doing a lot of sidebars today. I ride my bike in Forest Park a lot, and sometimes I'll go down Y Down, which is like a gorgeous street with beautiful homes. And I get to the end of Y Down, and I saw Wilson Contreras walking his dog after his 2-homer game the other night. This would have been on Friday morning.
Nice. So you know where Wilson Contreras lives ish.
Most of them live in Clayton, around there. Yeah, I don't think I'm putting them on blast.
Tune in after the show. Drew will give you Wilson Contreras' exact address in case you want to visit him. Another Cardinals player, Nolan Gorman, man. The breakout is happening. So last night against the Dodgers, Tie game in the 7th inning, I believe. And they intentionally made the right move, I think, Dave Robertson, intentionally walking Paul Goldschmidt with lefty Victor Gonzalez on the mound to face Nolan Gorman, and third pitch just annihilated a low sinker into the seats. Gorman is not in the lineup today against a lefty, which is the optics look bad, but Jeff Jones of the Belleville News Democrat pointed out that he had started 7 straight, and the Cardinals have 9 more games without an off day. So, and Clayton Kershaw is pitching. Fine. Yeah. So the optics don't look great, but it's probably, if you're going to give him a day off today, it does make sense. And Ali Marmol did say after yesterday's game that Gorman's going to be playing against most lefties moving forward. So his OPS is actually higher against lefties now after that home run yesterday, but he's only had like 16 plate appearances or something like that against lefties this year. But yeah, I mean, there was so many encouraging signs with Gorman. You know, weighted runs created plus, the league leaders so far, Yandy Diaz, who is actually like head and shoulders above everyone else. He's having an amazing season. Then Ronald Acuna, then Nolan Gorman and Aaron Judge are tied for third after that. 640 slugging percentage leads the National League. Chase percentage last year was 31.1%. This year it's down all the way to 23.9%. Just a huge drop. Went from well below average to well above average in year over year. Strikeout rate going from 32.9% all the way down to 24.8%. Last year, Drew, we know he is like standing up taller in the box now, and a big reason for that is to try to get to that high fastball.
Yeah, dude.
And last year he hit 194 with a 348 slugging percentage against fastballs. This year he's batting 329 with a 658 slug against the heater. So just great strides that he's made. I don't know that we can say that like that's all those improvements are like permanent, but like he showed certainly the ability to adjust and improve, and he has turned into a late round flyer in fantasy to someone that you just absolutely want in your lineup each and every week. Even now, if the Cardinals are slated to face some lefties, I think it's okay to go ahead and keep him in there.
The weird thing about last year was like, all right, he couldn't catch up to a high fastball. And it's like, dude, that should be like every great major league slugger like wants high fastballs and like can feast on them. Yeah. I don't know if he was tired, like, he was drafted out of high school. He's played a lot of baseball. Maybe like, I don't know, the time and like just the rest and the work that he put in to going into this season, I think he's legit. The power has been there at every level. I like guys, we get it. Gorman's real. Move on. This is a good question though. We need to hear real talk about Matthew Liberatore and Brandon Williamson ASAP. I like what I saw from Liberatore. I think he is a guy you want to roster and plug in for every matchup. Williamson scares me a bit more. Like the numbers, he had a good debut, but the numbers this year were not good at AAA. I know he was like in the futures game in 2021. He's been kind of like talked up as a decent prospect at times, but he's way more of a wait and see for me. I think Liberatore, and I'm not just saying this as a Cardinals fan, this commenter said there's talk of Liberatore moving to the bullpen. They don't have that luxury. Like, no,
this other guy is, now he's saying that Matz is going to the bullpen. Is that like breaking news?
Maybe that's good.
And it says that Wayno starting Tuesday, Liberatore Wednesday. Now I'm saying Liberatore starting Tuesday. Either way, it sounds like he's going to be in the. I had not.
He's up.
It sounds like this is breaking, like as we would, as we were recording. Right. So that's good news. I mean, they kind of danced around the topic, and Mo in an interview said that maybe Liberatore would be available out of the bullpen this weekend. It's just kind of odd after watching how good he looked. I mean, I still have some concerns that he's going to be homer prone. I mean, it's great that the fastball velocity is up. That's huge for him, but it's also still a straight fastball, and he doesn't always command it all that well. He's had issues with the home run ball. Like even in his start back in the majors this week, he gave up some hard contact. So I think home runs could be an issue at times, but he's got a gorgeous curveball. If he can spot that fastball up in the zone, pairs really well with that curveball. So I think Liberatore has legitimately taken a step forward this year. He could be one of he could be one of the Cardinals' like best 2 or 3 starters right now. I know that's not a huge bar to clear. So yeah, I would be rostering Liberatore if he's available for sure. And I'm with you, by the way, on Williamson, just to confirm your suspicions. Yeah. It was in Coors that first start, so that's great. Yeah. Right. But he's, like you mentioned, the numbers not great at AAA this year. He's had issues throwing strikes. He's a big lefty who's got some pretty good stuff, but
I like him long term, kind of. But I wouldn't be going out to grab him.
Yeah, Liberatore's the clear ad of those two guys for me.
A 3-up from Saturday for me. Braxton Garrett was dominant for the Marlins on Saturday in a 1-0 victory. 1 hit allowed, 1 walk, 6 1/3 scoreless frames, 8 strikeouts. He now sets up to pitch at Coors Field next, which maybe isn't all that attractive. I think I would avoid that one. He's been good though. Like there was that 11-run blow up earlier this month against Atlanta. Atlanta will do that to you. But overall, even with that 11-run outing, a 4.60 ERA, 1.34 WHIP, a 44-8 strikeout to walk ratio in 43 innings. Like I don't know that he's trustworthy enough, Garrett, to start him at Denver. But the ratios, I think, are really intriguing. And he's been a guy that's flashed in the past. He's healthy now. He's got a locked-in spot in the Marlins rotation. If you remove that one bad start in Atlanta, he's like a very successful pitcher this year. And I think he's becoming more than just a streamer. Like I would probably sit out that Coors Field start, but I'd add him to my roster in like any kind of shallower league moving forward.
Yeah, I think you might be a little more optimistic than I am. I think he probably still falls in that streamer category for me. Yeah, I definitely bench him in Denver. But he's, like you mentioned, he's certainly flashed. Former number 7 overall pick, something like that. So favorable matchups, I'm definitely down to use him, but I would be a little more cautious. Another guy who's obviously universally rostered, Aaron Nola, had a really encouraging start. He hadn't struck out more than 6 guys in a start prior to yesterday, which is kind of crazy to think about, but he struck out 10.
That is weird.
Yeah, struck out 10 batters over 7 innings against the Cubs, 2 runs allowed. Like I mentioned, he had previous high of 6 strikeouts so far this season. Prior to that start, he's been up and down this season. The numbers overall haven't been great. I wonder if, like, he's always had big workloads, but last year was obviously the Phillies pitched or went had him pitch deeper into the year than he ever has before. In between the regular season and the playoffs, he threw more than 230 innings. So I think that's probably a big reason why those strikeouts haven't been there. Velocity's been down a little bit. I think Aaron Nola's just – this could be the turn of the tide kind of turning. He's just – we've seen in the past, like he's prone to these even like full seasons where the ERA is just not great, but he's such a workhorse and just generally a pretty reliable.
All the metrics point to like, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's ultimately going to be fine. A free agent to be as well, if that appeals to you at all as far as a guy pitching for a big contract. I think he's ultimately going to be fine. He's if there's a window to buy low on Aaron Nola, certainly I'd be in on that.
We'll get to our 3 down from Saturday, but did you guys talk yesterday about Gary Sanchez?
No. Gary Sanchez didn't come up. I can't imagine that he's gonna play a ton. Like they're already
Buck Showalter is so hard to figure out, but he had like finally started to trust Francisco Alvarez.
Right. And Omar Narvaez is
they have options at DH. Right. And Thomas Nito's on his way back too. Like he's not someone that I would pick up at fantasy.
No.
I think he's worth mentioning, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I'm not interested either. All right. 3 down from Saturday. Jamison Taillon. I don't know. The Cubs' courtship with Taillon like took a bit of a hit on Saturday. He got lit up for 8 runs, 6 earned over just 2 1/3 innings against the Phillies. Now with an 8.10 ERA in 7 starts for Chicago, 26 2/3 innings. Got that big 4-year, $68 million contract over the winter. I was kind of confused about sometimes the way the Cubs were spending that money. And just I don't think it looks very good less than a quarter of the way into what is a 4-year deal. I'm sure he'll be a little better moving forward. He's not an 8 ERA type of pitcher, but there have been injury blips. I don't know. Compared to what he did last year with the Yankees, I kind of think that is his peak. And I know he was had great spurts with the Pirates when he was a big time prospect, but he had a 3.91 ERA, 151 strikeouts, and 177 innings last year for the Yankees. I think he's a droppable guy in fantasy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not seeing anything that. Yeah,
he's getting a bunch of strikeouts, but like I know some people were intrigued when he signed with the Cubs. Like he had shown maybe if with the right pitch mix, he could kind of have the potential to take off. I know he was listed as a sleeper by a lot of guys in the industry with the thinking that the Cubs can kind of figure out that pitch mix and he could take take a step forward. But yeah, we've seen in the past like the ceiling's just not super high with Jamison Taillon. I think he's perfectly droppable. Guy definitely who is a hold. Another struggling start from yesterday from Joe Musgrove. I mean, he's given up a bunch of home runs. Especially, I mean, he had that one start in Mexico City where he just got creamed. Where they were basically
let's throw that one out.
Yeah, basically pitching on the moon. So Joe Musgrove is going to be ultimately fine. His velo's down a little bit, but he's going to be fine. The home run issues have popped up in the past for him occasionally. So, with the ball flying pretty well this year in general, could be an issue at times for him. But I think Joe Musgrove is going to be perfectly fine.
We've got a lot of comments about adding Giovanni Gallegos, and I know that he's like what does he have, like 3 saves in the last week? Did something happen to Ryan Helsley that I'm unaware of? Or you think
Not
they
that
just trust Gallegos? I've
I don't
watched
know,
the Cardinals games. I think it's
know if Marmol
situational.
said something about it or what, but yeah, like he put in Helsley in the 8th in a tie game. I think it was the 8th yesterday in a tie game.
Yes, yeah. Helsley got the win, and Gallegos got the save.
Yeah.
I still think Helsley's the guy, but it wouldn't hurt on a team like that to have, both options. I wasn't. All right. This guy's saying it's a committee now. Maybe. I would still rather have Helsley. Would you agree?
Out of the two, yeah. I mean, I don't like I said, I don't know what Ollie
I think they're both
Marmol
rostered
said today.
Right. Yeah.
I know, like, historically, a buddy of mine sent this to me like a few weeks ago. Like, I didn't realize that Gallegos' career numbers, like in high leverage situations, are like not good at all. That kind of surprised me. Like, he's been just on the surface seemingly like super consistent and one of the honestly better relievers in the National League for a few years now. But yeah, Helsley's injury is still nagging him. I don't know if that's
I don't think that's true.
Been publicly stated or what, but I know you had the finger issue last year in the postseason.
The finger thing last October? No, I don't think that's true. He's looked great, actually. Like, I've had people ask me, like, is Helsley like not legit? Like, obviously he was dominant last year. I was like, I think he's great. Like, the eye test tells me, dude hits like 102 miles an hour with his fastball. He's got a sweeping slider. Like, I'm reacting to these comments like, no, I mean, I think they're both worth rostering.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. I'd rather have Helsley of the two guys.
My third down from Saturday, I really liked Patrick Sandoval coming into the year, like the swing and miss stuff in his profile. I think you could totally project a full-on breakout for him, and I probably said that a few times. It hit a snag Saturday against the Twins. He allowed 3 runs on 5 hits and 4 walks over 4 and 2/3 innings, 104 pitches to not even make it through the 5th. And, command has been an issue even when he was great last year. Even though he thrived, I think he had an ERA under 3. I think it was like 2.9 something, and 151 strikeouts over 148 innings. He had like 32 swing and misses in a game, which is like the most ever since Garrett Cole. I think there's like a lot of real raw natural stuff there. There's a lot to like. He obviously needs to do a better job of finding the strike zone, but I'm still rostering Sandoval, like even in a 16-team league. I'm doing it confidently. He gets the Marlins next. If we see a little bit better command, the rest will follow. I think he's just like got a full arsenal of really good pitches, and we're always waiting for like these pitchers to take the next step command wise. I don't know if he can do that, but clearly he showed last year that he can still be effective kind of without it, with just being a little bit wild.
Yeah, I think he's always going to be wild. I don't think that's going to improve. The worrisome thing is like he's just not missing bats this year like we've grown accustomed to. Like he's got like his strikeout per 9 rate is like below 7. Like he's not striking guys out like we're used to him doing. Like his fastball is like easily his third best pitch.
Yeah,
He
it's not his best
uses
pitch,
it.
right? Yeah.
The changeup is just disgusting. I mean, I do think there's definitely volatility with Patrick Sandoval. I'm fine. I would not be dropping him, but it's probably wise to just keep him and stick him on your bench for now, and just hope he gets a little more efficient. Like I said, the whip's never going to be great with him.
Yeah.
He's just never going to have great control, but Angels should provide him with a decent amount of run support. And I mean, I think ultimately he's probably going to be okay, but I would stick him on the bench for now.
Without like knowing him and what they're telling him, he'd be great with like a cutter, like like you don't have to command a cutter as well as like a forcing fastball. He's got the tools like to be a really good pitcher.
Yeah.
And I was thinking we might see it this year just because he built up to 155 innings last year. Like this could be the full on breakout. His fastball is not a good pitch, which is a problem. And then it like makes you think, oh, should he be a reliever? I don't know, but I mean he's done enough so far.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Keep him rostered, but put him on your bench for now. Let's do some.
Let's talk some waiver.
Let's talk some do a little rapid fire. I got Jake Berger from the top. I'm not really sure why the rostership with Jake Berger is not higher at this point. Barrel rate behind only Aaron Judge so far. He's got a 301 XBA via Baseball Savant, even with a 29.3% strikeout rate, just because he hits the ball so hard, like among the elite as far as his hard hit rate goes. They're talking about putting him in the outfield. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe the choice ultimately would be him or Eloy Jimenez in the outfield. And they're probably more willing to risk Berger getting injured, frankly, than they are Eloy. So, it would be it's going to be hard to justify benching Jake Berger once the White Sox get healthy, especially given their situation as a team right now. I feel like the White Sox might kind of do a teardown this summer. It might not be the worst thing. But yeah, Jake Berger, I think
a lot of pieces to move.
Yeah. Jake Berger, I think, is legitimate. I would the power is definitely legitimate anyway. I would scoop him up if he's available.
I think our cover photo was Brandon Pfaadt, and I saw this comment. Someone just dropped Pfaadt for Bobby Miller in our 12-team head-to-head league. Should I pick up Pfaadt off waivers? Yeah. I mean, I think so.
I think it does. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a.
I know that he
right now
struggled, but yeah, right.
It kind of depends on what else might be available.
His last two outings have been way more encouraging than he had a terrible debut and didn't pitch well second time out, but the dude misses bats. You're in a 12-team league, you should have Brandon Pfaadt on your roster. I'll put it that way.
There you go. Drew has spoken.
Thank
you. Who you got? Waiver wire.
James Paxton. I think we've seen enough so far from Paxton that he's moved from wait and see mode to must have mode. That seems crazy to say, but a 2.45 ERA, 14 strikeouts, 3 walks through 11 innings, 2 starts with the Red Sox. I mean, a big strikeout rate was his calling card in his prime with the Mariners generally. And there's been enough of that kind of stuff so far. He gets, I think, the Angels next or the Diamondbacks, depending on the way they want to schedule it out. They do have an off day. I think he's a plug and play guy now. Given what we've seen, James Paxton, health finally cooperating again. We talk about it all the time. Every fantasy manager needs pitching, and I'd be totally fine with rostering Paxton and starting him against the Diamondbacks or the Diamondbacks or Mariners.
Yeah, I mean, just roll him out there until he breaks, which inevitably will happen. We know that's the history. But yeah, he's flashed enough from a velocity perspective, from a strikeout perspective since returning that I think he's worth picking up if he's out there. Not sure what the workload will look like or how long he'll be able to stay on the field, but for now, why not?
He's on that 2-year minor league contract with the Red Sox. They might as well use the hell out of him.
Yeah. A guy who's been like incredibly unlucky so far this season is Josh Naylor. Going into action today, he has a 298 WOBA versus a 373 expected WOBA. That's a 75-point gap, which is easily the biggest gap in baseball. He's actually, I mean, for kind of the back of the baseball card numbers, not really looking great on the surface. He's actually on a 26 homer, 114 RBI pace. That Guardians lineup has been just absolutely dreadful. I do think it has to get a little better, and he's been consistently batting in the middle of it. So I think the RBI opportunities are going to be plentiful. The problem with Naylor, he doesn't really play or hit lefties at all. I mean, he's just dreadful against lefties. But I think he could do enough against righties to make it worth rostering him, particularly if you're in like a daily moves league where you can spot him in there when they're facing righties. I think could be valuable that way.
For the positions that he's eligible, like I feel like you could do better.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Jake Fraley is kind of like come into the mix as an attractive outfielder. Launched his way into an everyday role with the Reds. He's racking up a lot of hits and RBIs in recent weeks. In total this year, an 822 OPS with 5 home runs, 32 RBIs, 6 stolen bases in 41 games. He's been hitting third lately for the Reds, having a huge May so far. There's like obviously going to be some regression coming with a player like this, but he has good speed and like a bit of pop, and currently like a prominent lineup spot. I'm like all about Fraley as a pickup for those in leagues that need outfield help, like 5 outfield league. Like even if you're hurting in a 3 outfield league, like he's playing at the top of the lineup and he's producing. I wouldn't expect it to like maintain all year, but just
I mean, I
a
wouldn't.
solid waiver where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a ton of playing time versus lefties, but like he's shown he can hit righties. Obviously, in a great situation there in Great American Ballpark. Yeah. He steals bases when he's on the field. He's had plenty of injury issues, but from like second half on, I think maybe a little before that, depending on when. I'm getting my dates mixed up, but I know he closed really strong last year once he finally got healthy, Jake Fraley.
He did, yeah. No, he did.
So good situation he's in.
He's shown flashes, dude. Like, I think he's a good player.
Yep, especially in roto leagues when you can get that little pop, little bit of speed. He's a nice like 4th or 5th outfielder.
Yep. I think we've covered all the names that we have to cover. That'll be it for us. Thanks for tuning in to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast brought to you by Rival Fantasy. Go to rivalfantasy.com or download the app today to begin playing a far better form of daily fantasy baseball. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Drew Silva. Ryan is at Ryan P. Boyer. Stay tuned for more episodes throughout the week. Peace.